Actually, I'm fairly certain he can do it. He can do comedy like that on the turn of a dime. Good afternoon. This is Beyond the Green Room. I'm your host, David Edwards, and that clip, that perhaps politically incorrect, but warm and welcoming old vaudeville clip, is from a production of The Sunshine Boys, starring one of my guests today. And I'd like to introduce them to you in just a minute, but I want to remind you that Beyond the Green Room is a place where we meet to discuss weekly at brunch time on Sundays, all things theater. I have three wonderful guests today who have long, successful careers in the theater, each a different journey, and they've got some wonderful stories for us, and I've got some questions for them. First, let me introduce the gentleman that you saw doing the Neil Simon show right there. He is the artistic director of Centenary Stage Company. He's also an accomplished actor, as you can see, and a director. He's a jack of all trades and has made a magnificent life for himself in the theater. He's my friend, Mr. Carl Wallnau.
Hello, David. And I think it's fair to say that you forgot to mention that you were in that particular production as well, stealing scenes constantly. And it seems like it was years ago, and yet it was just this past year, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like a lifetime ago?
We closed a week before they closed the theaters. We just
March
got
1st.
in there under the belt.
Yeah, we closed on Sunday, March 1st, and it was a full house, and everyone was having a great time. And then within 2 weeks, like, the world changed, right?
Yeah. All right, let me bring in the other two guests because we'll talk about that a little bit more. My next guest is a lady who is a director, a casting director, a company manager. She has had a miraculous journey in the theater, and I'd like to find out how she got where she is right now, because it's a journey towards being one of the most respected casting directors in the business. She's also somebody who's directed everything from musical theater to opera, and worked with some of the most famous, side by side with some of the most famous directors on Broadway. Please welcome Jamibeth Margolis.
Hi, David.
Hi, Jamibeth.
It's an honor to be here with you.
Oh, well, we're so happy you're here. You said you were somewhere where there was a hurricane. Are you in Florida? Where are you?
Oh, no, I'm in Central Jersey.
Oh, you're in Central. All right. Yes. Well, we have hurricanes in Maine now, so who knows?
We do. It's great to be here with you after having worked with you for so long.
Well, it feels a lot longer only because of what we're dealing with right now, but we're working together today, so that's the important thing. All right, let me bring on my last, but certainly not least guest. She is true Broadway royalty. You will recognize her face and, of course, her name from so many Broadway musicals, from George M. to The Magic Show, and very notably to Evita and Cats, and of course, off-Broadway and film and recordings. And she couldn't wait to get on our show, and I'm so honored that she felt that way. Please welcome Loni Ackerman.
Hi.
Hi, Loni, you're so tan. I'm jealous.
I think it's from, we do a lot of running and CrossFit. And so they have us outside. Of course, I tweaked a calf muscle, so I haven't done anything in a week, so I'm just a blob.
Oh, but all I do is run from the lobby to get the mail to back up to the apartment lately. So
I run up the driveway, so we get the mail. But there's no mail.
Yeah, I know. Well,
that's why I have to order on Amazon just to get mail.
All right. Well, let's by the way of getting to know everybody, and so everybody who is watching gets to know you all a little bit. I play this little game every week that I hope doesn't put anybody on the spot. It's in my own egotistical way, 6 degrees of David Edwards. So I like to ask each one of my guests how we first met, how we know each other. And it doesn't have to be the same story. I know, Carl, our story will be very easy. So I'll start with you.
Right. Well, we met at an audition, you came out, and it was around the time. I remember there was a huge snowstorm, and you called in and said, are you still seeing people? And it was for the Moss Hart play. What was it?
Light Up the Sky. Light Up the Sky.
Light Up the Sky, right. I keep saying it, right. Light Up the Sky. And I said, yeah, come out. We're seeing. And you walked in. And I think I made you the offer right there when you were there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think I said, I'd love to have you play the director. And it was, I think it was like Bob Phillips, a wonderful set designer. It was his first big event for us. And that was just a spectacular. We created that hotel room. And since then, it was Cripple of Inishman. It was The Mousetrap. We also presented the show that you directed, Bittersweet. And then you and I did Laughter on the 23rd Floor down in Bristol. And then did also the one we just saw,
right.
Past, the Sunshine Boys this past March, February and March. So it's been it's the best phone call I've ever taken.
Oh, I love you. I feel the same way. How about you, Jamibeth? What do you think? What was our first encounter?
Well, I think back to a lot of amazing auditions when I worked at Johnson Lift Casting, that you would come in for us a lot. And I would think, wow, he's very masterful at comedy. So I was very lucky to get to see you audition a lot for various things. I even got to cast you, which is even better. That's my favorite part of my job, of course, is the offers. And then, of course, most recently, reading at the National Yiddish Theater Folkscreener.
That's right. Yes. Well, you are always so welcoming and nurturing to the actors. And we'll talk a little bit more about your journey into casting, because I don't know too much about it. So I would like to know. And Loni, what do you think was our first encounter?
I think you think it was when you were in the Rothschilds as a child, and I was across the street in No No Nanette. But what year were you in the Rothschilds? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, well, it had to be like 71, maybe.
Oh, okay, so I was still there, because I don't remember that bomb scare.
Well, yeah, we should tell people that when I was a kid, I was obsessed with this production of No No Nanette, and I had memorized the cast album. And my parents took me on my birthday, and the night that we saw it, there was a bomb scare in the theater, so we all ended up.
Child's yet?
I think I had not, because I went in just at the tail end of the run.
Okay, so I was gone
because I was one of the little boy Rothschilds, right. And I didn't go in. I was always the wrong height for the one they were replacing at the time, and I finally got it, and the show closed. So, but I just remember that night as so exciting, because I got to see all the gorgeous women in their costumes and their makeup out on the street, and I later got to work with Ruby Keeler and Helen Gallagher, and it was talking about that show with you the other night. It reminds me how everybody has a different view of it. It is so lionized by theater fans, and will forever be talked about as the big revisal that changed the theater for a while, and with such loving memories. But I know that when I got to know Ruby, she had a lot of angst and worry during the run of the show, and I got the feeling that it wasn't the best experience for you either. And so I mean, not to bring up anything that was negative about it, but it just I find that when we do sometimes you can be in a flop, and it can be the most wonderful, enriching experience that you remember the rest of your life. And then you can be part of a big hit, and behind the scenes, you're thinking, oh boy, it's time to move on. I think we've all had those experiences.
Right. Well, but then we actually met at, wasn't it the National Yiddish Theater, the 100th, the celebration, 100th
Yeah,
year.
Jamibeth.
Jamibeth,
Yeah.
were you there also, I think?
Yes, yeah, I produced that evening. I have such fond memories of both of you in that.
I do. That was a great night. That was so much fun.
It sure was.
And that's when we really met.
Yeah.
You know, David, my wife just passed me a note because she was an actress in New York, and she said, I saw Loni Ackerman in Nanette, and because you were in it with a friend of hers, Kathy Connery, and what spectacular that production was. She's correcting me whenever I say something wrong. So she's sitting off to the side, coaching.
Uh-oh. Hi, Colleen.
He says hi. David says hi, Colleen. Okay.
So, I'm looking now at Jamibeth's screen, and I noticed the Hirschfeld for Sunset Boulevard behind you. And Loni, you, of course, you were Grisabella in Cats and Evita on Broadway, and but recently you finished doing the Triple Crown of Andrew Lloyd Webber roles by doing Sunset Boulevard.
3 weeks. I mean, at Midway, it was so much fun. That show I think is more fun to be in than maybe to watch for, some of the long numbers. But it was a great experience. And Gateway is the last of, the classic summer stock. I mean, it was so great. Everybody in a dorm. I got to stay in someone's house, but it was so much fun and a really fun role to sing. So yeah, the trifecta.
Well,
Maybe I could have done.
I don't care where you do a role like that. If you get to do it, it's great. I've done a number of shows at Gateway. I did La Cage and Beauty and the Beast, and yeah. And they have, for those of you who've never worked out there, it's a real old summer stock theater, and they have yes, it is, and they have a swimming pool that literally looks like it was just
right
out yesterday.
Right. And it was really hot when we were there. I mean, it was a schwitz bath, but it was just so much fun. And I remember one night. Is this time for stories?
Absolutely, okay. It's always time for stories.
Classic. It's in a barn. Of course, there's a hole in the ceiling, and major thunderstorm, rainstorm starts happening, and it was during the number As If We Never Said Goodbye. Okay, so I'm standing there and I'm singing. There's the orchestra, and a lot of the instruments were electronic, and it starts raining, and I get really focused. I mean, a bomb could go off and I'll keep going because I'm just afraid to stop. So it starts raining on the stage. I mean, pouring. And the cast I gather, was, they were like looking around, and I'm still singing. And all of a sudden, all the electricity went out, except for the few live instruments, like a saxophone, and the work light went on. And I thought, oh, that must be an extra spotlight. And I just kept going. And there was no music. I just kept singing. And it was like, being in a bomb shelter in World War II in London. And the conductor, Jeff, what's his last name? Burn.
I know, because I picture his face. I've worked with him, yes.
So he just kept conducting, and I kept singing. And as we came around from the bridge into the last chorus, the electricity went back on, and we were like right on. It was so crazy. It was
like you were providing your own electricity at the moment.
You just keep going. It's like you can't stop until someone tells you to stop. But that's just the Aries in me. It's just, just keep ramming your way through. But it was fun. That was a really fun show to do. So
I'll bet. There's nothing really in it for me, but I'd love to do it. I think it's one of my favorites of his. I did the shortest running Andrew Lloyd Webber show on Broadway. So Yes, yes. Um, we had our own set of problems then, but um, I-
My favorite flop was So Long 174th Street.
oh yes, you
Oh,
well,
that was so much fun.
and
And
you did you worked with George Irving on that, who was
oh my God, he was hilarious. He was such an imp. All the sets were kind of beige. They weren't. There was not a lot of color. And one night, he wanted to get the entire cast to come in and just paint the sets, anything they wanted. Of course, we never did it, but he had this in mind that he was going to make color out of the sets. And he was kind of funny. You know, you would walk up the stairs to your dressing room and he would be behind you, and all of a sudden you get a little pinch. And that was George. It was so innocent. It was just, he was so adorable. And Bobby Morse, there was never a night where George wasn't crying from laughing, because Bobby, all he had to do, he has like a rubber face. All he had to do was just look at him askew, and George was gone.
I have some George stories that a couple of which I'm not sure I should tell online, but he did. I did Roar the Grease Paint with him, and he had done it before, but every night before we go on stage, he'd say, "Oh, it's like standing at the foot of Everest. I don't know if I can do this. I don't." And then he would go out and control every member of the audience and every member of the ensemble. All of the girls in the show were in love with him.
It's so cute.
And if he made a mistake, he managed to make it look like it was mine.
Yeah.
So, and yes, and the year that we did that together, he was very famous for doing the voices of A Year Without a Santa Claus. He was the heat miser on, and with all the work he did on Broadway, he resented that people remembered him from that and that only. And they, at CVS, they came out with little dolls of The Year Without a Santa Claus that year. And I bought a bunch of them, and I thought, well, maybe he'd like to have one. I said, George, you have your own action figure. Oh, he got so upset. And I said, oh, put that away. I said, all right, well, I made him autograph a couple of them for gifts. But, you know, it's interesting how you have a life in the theater, a career in the theater, and the one thing they remember you for is the voice of a cartoon that at Christmas time every year. Nice to be remembered for something, I'm telling you.
Yeah, he was great.
So, Carl, you know, I want our viewers to know that one of the things I think is so unique and special about your life is that you have managed to start your own professional theater company. You teach, you direct, you work as an actor, not only at that theater, but regional theaters, off-Broadway, national tour. You've managed to carve a life for yourself in the theater with no compromises that I can see, and managed to travel, to live well. You're a lesson to all of us. Was this all part of a master plan, or
part of my master plan to control the? Yeah, I always wanted to do that from the time I was in college. There was you know, everybody's inspired by somebody, and I was inspired by my own undergraduate theater director, a guy by the name of David Brubaker, who directed, but then he was working all the time at the Allenbury Playhouse. If anybody remembers that, out in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. And I thought, what a great life that would be. And so when I first got to Centenary, you know, I went as an adjunct, and then they had eliminated the department. And they basically said to me, here's the theater. It was a small space, the 174-seat little theater. They said, see if you can do something with it. What does every actor in New York actually want? They wish, always are dreaming about finding their own place, their own theater. So I had this. And the one good thing about it, because I was the only person in the department, and there really wasn't a department, is that I could disappear for 4 or 5 weeks at a time and nobody would notice. So I would fly off to do a show like at the Arts Center of Coastal Carolina, or do something down there, or Oslo Theater, or Orlando Shakespeare. And I would fly down there for a while. I would commute. I would go down there, do the shows, do the rehearsals, fly back Sunday afternoon, stay till Tuesday, go into the office, see everybody, act like I was doing something, then get back on the plane Tuesday night to go, and nobody ever missed me. When we moved into the bigger space, all of that sort of changed. But then I'd been there so long that people just kind of ignored it. But also, I never wanted to do anything other than theater stuff. I mean, I never wanted to have a survival job, and I never wanted to have to get up before the crack of noon. And so it seemed that all of those things, worked out fine. I actually have a question for Loni, because I was kind of curious about, across 174th Street, when they were doing the Enter Laughing, the kind of revival at the York, which I love. And the music to that show is so spectacularly funny, and it's great. And I'm surprised that they haven't revived that. Was there a lot of change in the 174th Street to that revival, or did they basically just do the show with a different cast? I thought that Robert Morse, as wonderful as he is, was too old for the part.
Oh yeah,
he was like 40.
I didn't see the revival.
Yeah.
Not by choice. It was just, you're driving people to baseball practice and stuff, and I just didn't get there. So I don't know. Bobby was he was a little too old. What's interesting is there was one night where his performance was so perfect. It was not even human. He looked like he was 20 years old. Every beat, it was just phenomenal. And then it didn't, well, we didn't last. So, unfortunately, maybe if someone who was a little younger, but it was so much fun. So I don't know if the revival, was different. I'm sure it probably was. Was the mother in it?
Mother was in it, yes.
Oh, she was not in the original.
Well, that's a major change then. Yeah, and she had a song and everything else. That's a great part for you, David. The George Irving part, and that is.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the mother. Yeah, I mean,
I thought you would say that too.
Yeah.
Well, nobody can do that song the way George did, and he managed to give that show a life after it closed because he did that song everywhere.
Right. I'm screwing Dolores Del Rio. Right. The Butler song.
Yeah.
Right.
It's called the Butler song, but
the Butler song.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he would forget the lyrics and but make up his own. And I mean, he could sing it in gibberish, and you would think you just heard, a Shakespearean sonnet. It was, he was so tickled every night by Bobby, and Bobby knew that he was, there was his victim. He got me one night really badly in the little romantic duet by a jungle gym, and all he did was cross his eyes and knock his head on the jungle gym bar, like the song was so boring he was falling asleep, and I just got it caught like right in my throat. I thought, oh, please God, just let me get through this song because I'm going to fall down screaming, laughing. But anyway, he was really sweet. We did a couple of shows together. But so to answer your question, I don't know if I'm sure they changed.
It sounds like it if the mother is in it. This one, yeah.
The mother was gone. She started in the show, and then it was cut, and the father was in it.
Yeah.
Was the father in the revival?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to, before I forget, I wanted to ask Jamibeth, because when I was looking into your bio and at your credits, I always wonder how people go into casting. I don't think anybody sets out initially. I could be wrong, but it seems you're a director, you were an actor, or what was your journey to get into casting?
Right. It's interesting. I thought about this a little bit because when I was in college, nobody studied to be a casting director, but nobody knew about it. It wasn't really a thing that was in our purview. Now, of course, there are programs out there where you get a BFA and they teach you to be an agent or a casting director. And that's something that you go into undergrad knowing and wanting to do. For me, it wasn't really like that. I didn't really know exactly about it. But all I knew was I was earning my degree in directing. I knew I wanted to be in theater. I knew I wanted to be on the other side of the table and not a performer. I loved working and directing, and I was basically the biggest theater nerd ever in college. So I kept going into the city to see shows and memorizing playbooks. So I'd memorize the cover sheet. I'd memorize the cast. I'd get to the point where I'd know every actor who sang every line of a song. So I was like, this is great, you know, against the cast recording. And then I realized, looking at the cover sheet of the playbills, that every show I really loved, it was like casting by Johnson Liff Associates, casting by Johnson Liff Associates. And I thought, gosh, how does one do this? And I had sat down with the director as part of an internship I was doing in college. I did an internship at the McCarter Theater in Princeton. And one of the directors said to me, you know, there's two things I want to tell you as a directing major. One is that when you graduate at age 22, no one's going to trust you with a $14 million Broadway musical. That was his first piece of advice. And his second piece of advice was, as a director, 99% of your job is done for you if you have a great cast. And that stuck in my head. It resonated with me. And I thought, wow, what if I could go get an internship at Johnson Liff Casting? So, because I love, you know, so I sent my stuff to them and I said, you know, I'm currently working, but I have a couple of days a week free. I'd love to intern for you. And they hired me as an intern. It was totally unpaid. I was getting Claude Michel Schoenberg coffee. I was filing headshots in a big cabinet. We had this magical board at Johnson Liff where we would track who played what role in every company of the shows, you know, the tours and the Broadway, and we'd move people around in these little sliders. And I was responsible for keeping that up as well, which was like my favorite job in the whole world. It was like, ooh, look, every Madame Giry, and, you know, and I loved it. It was the greatest thing in the world. So I realized how much I really loved casting. And I got lucky enough one day after I was there for a couple of months, Jeffrey Johnson, who is my greatest teacher and taught me everything I know, basically sat me down and said, do you really love this? Do you want to be a casting director? Because someone's leaving and, you know, we have a casting assistant job opening. And I was like, yes, I love this. So he's like, great, you're hired. And it kind of like the rest was history from that point. You know, I'll admit that I was lucky to be able to have a job and work there for free a couple of days a week to learn and be at the right place at the right time when an assistant left. So I ended up being there for 10 years, moving up between assistant, casting associate, and then casting director, and certainly learning from Jeffrey Johnson and the late Vinnie Liff was the greatest gift a casting director could have. So yeah, I fell into it from a directing degree and that bit of advice that I got at the McCarter.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and I'm sure very instructive to people who are looking at that end of the business right now. It's very hopeful and very very smart of you from word go. Loni, I am remembering a casting story that you told me last week about getting cast in the magic show and what you did to bring it home, as it were.
The magic show one. Yes. Okay. So I had worked with Grover Dale when we were in this workshop when I was in Georgia. I had just turned 19, and it was a kind of a dancer actor workshop, and we were acting through dance, and then I did a few commercials with him, and I just loved him. So now, if you can believe this, Anita Morris was leaving the show, and I went in to audition to replace Anita Morris. And of course, the first audition I went in looking like myself. And of course, my hair was black then. And it was kind of like maybe Edith Piaf going into audition for Charmin. But I did a Barbie Benton song. The exact same audition that I did later. And Grover said, okay, I want you to come and watch the show and then go home and do your homework. And I went, okay, I got another chance. So I came and I saw Anita and I thought, oh my God, of course. I went out and I bought a red wig, a push-up bra, and I wore like a cut-off, you know, I dressed with the essence of Anita and Charmin. And the stage manager, John Ackerman, who was a good friend of mine, because his sister was my best friend. I go back to the callback, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Hey, Johnny, I'm here for the callback." And he turned, he said, "I'm sorry, what is your name?" And I thought, oh, okay, maybe this is working. I said, "It's me." He went, "Oh my God, oh my God." And then I went out on stage, and Vinny Liff was in the audience, and I went out as Charmin, as Anita, and he started screaming. He was screaming. He just couldn't, he was hysterical. He loved it. The exact same audition, step for step, word for word, expression for expression. And when I was teaching, I tell the kids, you have to bring the essence, because sometimes they can't see it. All it took was a push-up bra and a red wig. And then, of course, the last part was to come back and see if I could contort myself into all those boxes, and which I could at that time. Probably if I had to do it now, I could contort myself, but when the time would come to get out of the box, no way. I'd still be in the bottom of the box. So, you know, I was sawed in half, and I thought I had so much fun in that show.
Okay.
And
was Doug Henning still in it, or was it Joe Araldo? Yeah.
No. I forget who the standby was. It wasn't Joe. It was, yeah, I know. I worked with Doug, and for like 9 months, and then So Long 174th Street came around, and I thought, do I leave the show to do that? But yeah, I have to do something new. But that was the audition. It was the same with Evita. You had to bring an essence of the character. So of course I did chignon and a colorful blouse for Buenos Aires, and then I put on a black suit jacket for Argentina. And the third audition, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to put this chignon on again. And this was in LA, and red lips, and okay. And I go in and I do Argentina, and Hal Prince goes like this to me, calls me over to the edge of the stage, and I'm still trying to be the character because I didn't get an audition the first time around. I don't know why, but I didn't. So he said very quietly, okay, he said something, and then he said, okay, let's do this. And I thought he meant do the song again. And I went, fine. And I turned around, turned my back on him to walk back to the center to do the song. And I hear him say, all right, well, I guess I'll see you in rehearsal. And I turned around, I went, what? And I jumped off the stage into his arms. I almost killed him and almost knocked him down. And that was another carousel. That was, I would have walked across the earth on hot coals for Hal.
Well, I'm sure that's a lesson for us all. We were talking also about how sometimes the smaller the project, the harder it is to get the job. And then for a huge thing like that, you're either right or you're wrong, and you get it. It's kind of mind-boggling. And I guess, I don't know how you feel, Carl, but I just feel like right now the thing that I need to do is get a red wig and a push-up bra.
Yeah.
Well, I know I do that all the time anyway. That's how I got the Titanic tour, was wearing the red. I borrowed her red wig and the push-up bra. And so it worked perfectly well. I use that for everything. If anybody shows up
Carl was in the tour of Titanic, and I guess he was playing Molly Brown.
You did the tour of Titanic?
Yes, first national tour, yes.
Oh, my husband was the sound designer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My husband is the sound designer for everything. I said, mention the producers the other day. Oh, he designed that. So we're very happy that he's in the house there too, in case the sound goes out.
Sound goes out, right.
Yeah.
No, he said to me, you're on your own.
He's not 24/7 tech support while you're on. No, that's not good. You've got to have that.
This is like the shoemaker's shoes.
So also we were I was watching the old Charlie Chaplin movie Limelight a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this on the phone too. And there's this wonderful experience where Claire Bloom has stage fright. She won't go on as the ballerina, and Charlie Chaplin smacks her, and she ends up going right on stage and performing. And Loni, you have a story that kind of corresponds with.
Okay, the God's honest truth. So, in the beginning, the second act of Evita is the big balcony scene. Every show I've been in, I am enclosed or I'm on something that's really high up, and I hate both. I'm afraid of heights and I'm claustrophobic. So go figure. So there was a set of stairs in the wings, and you would go up and the door would open and you walk onto the balcony. It would have been fine, except the point of reference in the balcony was the railing was just above the hip. So you tend to think that you're going to fall off. But I got through it. So we've been running for like almost 2 years in LA. And one night, I have a wonderful dresser. She was an ex-dancer. We were really close. She was a tiny thing. And I'd been known for joking around. So I'm in the big white dress, and I know there are like 11 Evitas. I hear Evita, Evita, and suddenly my palms start to sweat. And I decide I'm not going out there. I'm not going to go because I'm going to fall off the balcony. And my breathing just started, getting really tense. I was having an anxiety attack, panic attack. And I knew it. And I said to Mary, I'm not going out there tonight. And she thought I was joking around. And she said, yeah, which really made me mad. And I'm hearing Evita, Evita. And I said, oh, no. I'm not going out there tonight. And now she saw that I was panicking. And she said, no, you have to go out there. Evita, Evita. I said, I am not going out there to sing that song. This little thing hauls off and smacked me across the face. I had a handprint on my cheek. I turned around, I said, thank you. And the door opened and I went out, shaking like a leaf. But she had no choice. And the stagehands on that side of the stage were like, oh, maybe she just smacked the lead in the show. But I mean, she hauled up and smacked me. Of course, we laughed for the rest of the show. But it was, you just had, that's supposed to be the highlight of the show for you. And to me, it was every night was like, oh my God, like going up on the tire in Cats. And I remember a guy playing Old Deuteronomy, loved the height. And every night he would say, oh, look how high we are. Look at that. Look at that. And I go, shut up. And one night, the cherry picker, I would step onto this cherry picker and go to cat heaven. And I had everything timed. And I saw the tire going down, but I wasn't going anywhere. And now I am hanging in the air in a cherry picker, which is not moving. And within 3 seconds, I had figured out the rest of my life that I would live on that cherry picker. And I thought I could put a little stove there. I'm not making this up. This was my mind. It eventually went up, but it was the longest 5 seconds of my life. But yeah, she hauled off and just whacked me right across the face. Door open.
And the difference between you and me is that when I got off stage, I probably would have slapped her back. But then,
no, I knew she had no choice.
I know. I'm teasing it, but I think we've all had those moments,
Oh, God.
And there are times when I felt. Even when I felt like I had a good rehearsal period and everything, right before you go on, you have that bit of, am I an imposter? Do I deserve to be here? Is tonight going to be the night that it all falls apart? I don't ever feel that you are that way, Carl. I don't know. I've been on stage many times.
I remember doing in New York at the old Theater Row, the old, if you remember the old Theater Row when it was the old Theater Row, the Samuel Beckett, it was doing Billy Bishop Goes to War.
Oh.
And I remember getting ready to make the entrance at the very beginning of it, and the door was there outside with the stairs going down. And I remember thinking, if I just go out that door, go downstairs, the Port Authority is right there, who's going to know? What are they going to do? You know, he had this 2-hour thing that was like a marathon. He doesn't shut up. He doesn't stop singing. And I just remember thinking that was just, that's the way to go. Is this, why am I doing this? But I remember in Philadelphia, we were doing, this was another production of Laughter on the 23rd Floor, and I was driving in, and I got rear-ended on 95. My car got pushed into the car in front of it. We both cars were. The guy was on the cell phone, was wiped out. My car was back. I had a curtain that night. It was an 8 o'clock curtain, and I'm waiting for the police. The police aren't coming. I get out a crowbar. I have to crow the rear off of the tire. And I said to them, I gave my information. I said, I can't wait. I have a curtain at the show, and I took off, and I called in, and I told the stage man I'm going to be a little bit late. Got in, I said, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. The 2 cars are totaled. My car's wrecked, but I think I'm fine. I got up to the door, and I was doing Milt in that one. So he has as the whole opens up with this big speech. And I stood at the door, and I turned to the assistant stage manager, and I said, is there a script anywhere around? And she went, no. And I said, I don't know what show is this? What's my first? I had no idea. And I'm hearing the cue, and now I'm beginning, what's the, and then and I opened the door, and I had read somewhere, take a deep breath and it will all come back. I took a deep breath and just started talking and got through it. But I mean, there was that moment of, where am I? What am I doing? The shock had just hit in. So it can be a night. As I like to say, it's when you enter the white room, there's no worse feeling in the world.
Right. Yeah. The white room. That's a good one.
Yeah. And it's no greater feeling than when you get out there and you just live. And
in your body. It's in your body somewhere.
Well, we the three of us talk here about these war stories and our neuroses and our Jamibeth, you deal with these people all the time. The door opens, you come in, but I have never auditioned for you where I didn't feel welcome and comfortable. And this may surprise you because there's a lot of casting directors out there who don't make you feel that way. They almost have a checklist of what they're going to criticize before you walk in the door. And I think you are to be congratulated for that, because I think you do better because of the way you welcome us.
Well, thank you. Well, my favorite thing about being in theater is actors. I love actors. Someone once said to me, like, why do you do what you do? I said, because I love actors. I respect actors. There's nothing more that I want to do than work with an actor. I've never wanted to be an actor. So I feel like we have I respect the talent, a certain bond, a certain kinship. And I respect your time, especially now. Think about some of the auditions. I mean, David, I've seen you audition more recently, where we ask you, prepare 21 pages of material for this callback. And, I respect how much time, how much effort that takes on your part to come in and deliver that. So thank you for saying that. I would never want to change that aspect of how I run a room, because it's very important to me that everyone feels like, whether you were cut after 8 bars or 25 minutes, that you still feel that respect is there.
Well, I've had experiences where, there are certain roles that I've done a number of times. And I like to think to great success. And so I'd like to think that the audiences and the critics and the producers of said theaters felt the same way. And then I get called in to do the same role at a certain theater, and you don't get past, the first 2 bars. And it's a very demoralizing thing, but you have to realize that everybody has a different view of what that role is, and perhaps how to put their mark on that particular show. And a case in point, this is way early in my career, but when I was freelancing with agents, I had 3 agents call me about the same project, and it was a production of Camelot. And one of them said, I'd like to submit you for Lancelot because of your voice and blah, 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 blah. Of course, yeah. And the second one called and said, I'd like to submit you for Mordred. And I thought, okay, well, that's a lovely acting role. And of course, the role I wanted to do was Arthur, which I ended up doing 3 times. And the third person called that. He said, you might be a little young for this. You might be, but I went with the agent who had the view that of where I wanted to go in my career. And I always felt like for better or for worse, that's what you have to follow your instincts that way too. I kind of wish I had gotten a chance to play Lancelot and Mordred too, because we all think we can play everything, but you know, maybe not.
Well, I know my limitations. Shakespeare, no way,
Really?
no way.
No.
Interesting. Well, I think that's our great joys too as a casting director. Like one of my favorite things is when an actor comes in and the director gives me that moment to say, wow, that was a great reading. How about he reads for Mordred instead? So we have that ability too to kind of like move you into that role where we see you getting the job and in that particular production's vision, which is one of the things I love.
Well, when I auditioned for the producers, I think I read for every character in the show. And what I found out later is that Susan Stroman was thinking of me in a certain track, as they say, and then being able to cover all these roles. So that was a blessing in order for me to get into the show, but it was also a curse that they were never going to give me one of these roles. I was going to have to cover and everybody else. And it's a daunting job, but it does keep you working that way.
There was this is for the moms. You know, you stay away. I left. Well, the first time I left Evita because I was pregnant with Jack, and of course, my only symptom, both pregnancies, was the first 3 months I was dizzy. Now they say I'm dizzy anyway, but that was all. So now you're on the balcony. And one night I did the first act and I thought, you know what? The stress, this is going to, God forbid something happens to this child. And I said, Nancy Opal, you're on. And I left after the first act. And then never, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I had Jack. And then there were a series of auditions that just did not go that well for me. Les Mis just was never in the basket for me. And I think things are meant to be, because if I got Les Mis, I wouldn't have our second son, Georgie, and I wouldn't miss that for anything. But okay, so you stay home, you try to keep yourself in shape, you do the best you can. I finally got into Cats, and I had been there. I mean, I'm in Barbra Streisand's old dressing room in a unitard singing Memory. That has to mean something. And I get a call from an unknown, you'll never, not to say the name, of a summer company. And I had some vacation time coming. And they said, oh, we would love for you to do Evita. And I'd done it for 4 years, okay. Yeah, I would love to do that. Well, we would like you to come in and audition. I said, what? An audition for Ava? This was the explanation. Well, you've had 2 children and you live in the country. We don't know how much you weigh. And I said, you know what? I think you should get yourself a ticket to the show called Cats. I am sitting in a unitard at 110 pounds, singing the high notes and looking at Barbra Streisand's old chandelier. So if that ain't enough to tell you that I'm in shape and able to carry over the bar mitzvah song, then you have a problem. And I told them to where they could stick the show, and I hung up on them. And I thought, you know what? I had to stand up for women who have had children, who are trying to juggle both lives and trying to keep it together. There were a series of auditions where it's just like you talk about going into the white room, knowing that, okay, is the babysitter, is it going to be okay? How long is it going to take me to get to the city? It's It's so hard. And my hat goes off to any mom who can sustain both or try. If you can, stay home. If you can. After Cat's Eyes stayed home, I thought, you know what? I brought these with my husband, brought these two boys onto the earth. I have to take care of them. But then again, when you go back, you got to stand up for yourself. And that was just so incredibly insulting. So they called right back and they said, well, you know, we would love for you to come and do it. But we're also doing No No Nanette, and you could do the role that you did on the road, Lucille. I said, no thanks, bye-bye. And I hung up. And that would have been a good paycheck for a month on vacation. And I thought, no, I can't. I will never stoop to that, to be so insulted and to beg. And I don't want any mom, any actor, female or male or whatever gender, do never stoop to not believing in yourself and standing up for yourself. Jamibeth is so kind. You do want to go in and audition for her, but there are others who are so disrespectful, and it takes all your strength to walk into these rooms. Back in the day, you walked onto a stage with a work light. You didn't see anybody. You did what you had to do, and it was great. It was theater. Now it's so much harder for young people. But thank goodness for Jamibeth. And maybe you can teach the younger casting directors, assistants, to be like you.
Yes, I keep my assistant on her toes now, even when we're not really doing theater live. I try to keep her on her toes.
And you want the performer to be good.
You go to a lot of theater, Jamibeth. How many nights a week? I mean, not now, but
usually I try to see like every possible thing that I can. Certainly Broadway and off-Broadway, but I also will like run to Philadelphia and see someone in a tour if they tell me they're going on. I love to go to the off-Broadway, the showcases, and of course all the college showcases. So yeah, always busy doing something like 5 nights a week usually.
Oh, good for you. I saw that you directed a couple of operas.
Yes.
Which I would love to do. Loni and I were talking about how we started in this business. We were both child actors. You came in from dance and then to the opera.
No, I
was with City Opera as a kid, and Tosca is my absolute favorite opera, and I see that you directed it. So
yes, I would love to do it with you. Oh my God!
I don't know that I would be singing Scarpia anymore, but I would love to direct it. I'm very envious that you got a chance to do that. So,
it's one of my favorite operas. I actually have a kind of interesting story with that opera because through the SDC, I applied for one of their observership grants, and they were looking for a director that wanted to go into opera from musical theater. And that observership was on Mark Lamos' production of Tosca at New York City Opera. And I applied for it thinking, I have to get this. I want to see this. I want to be at City Opera. I want to see what this is like. And I got lucky enough to get that observership. So it kind of grew into being in rehearsal, then to being in the understudy rehearsals, and to being at the shows, at the performances. And I thought, I love this opera. And I had started directing a lot of opera, but not that one. And all of a sudden, one of the companies that I had been working for a lot, Bohème Opera, said, do you want to do Tosca? And I thought, wow, this is amazing that I got to have sort of my first big foray with that opera and then get to do it myself with my own take on it a few years later. So I love that opera. I want to do it again.
Well, if you ever get too busy and you can't do it, just say, I know a guy who'd love to do this.
Absolutely.
We are actually getting towards our little 2-minute intermission. And so at this point, I have a quiz question that I would like to propose to our viewership. And it'll probably be very easy for all 4 of you. And I know at least 2 people who watch our show every week who will know it immediately. So try to control yourselves. But the lead up to this is, our intermission is going to be an excerpt from the cast album of one of the most unusual and groundbreaking. Well, not so groundbreaking if you speak Yiddish, but the wonderful and so vital and exciting production of Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish that played a long time off Broadway recently, that Jamibeth cast. And I was lucky enough to see it opening night, thanks to Jamibeth. And one of my favorite young actors, who I've worked with a couple of times, Ben Liebert, played Muttle. And we're going to play his recording of Miracle. I can't say it in Yiddish. What do you know how to say it in Yiddish, Jamibeth? The name.
Believe it or not, I don't really speak Yiddish.
And you cast that show, my gosh.
I come from a Yiddish-speaking home, so I have a great ear and understanding of it, but unfortunately, I never learned to speak it.
Well,
I understand it.
You learn to cast it. That's what you're learning.
Ashanda for the mention.
All right. Well, so we'll play this clip. And the quiz question that will be on your ticker down below is, Tony, maybe you should put it up there because I want to get it exactly right. I know what it is, but what musical with a score by Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick, who wrote Fiddler on the Roof, won the Pulitzer Prize? And so now let's listen to Ben Liebert in Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes. So guys, refresh your drinks or go to the bathroom or whatever, and we'll see you in a couple minutes.
Hanes min shamayim, Hanes min shamayim. Gott sie so fun der nicht am Lech von der Floß, punkt wie beim Mäuschen mit dem Stein. Stot ihm zu beten, hat ihm der lange Stoß, als das Wasser so schön gehen. Gott sie so fun der nicht am Lech von der Floß. Ich hab gemeint, als es halt schon schlecht. Doch von mit Reihen führst du Gott ein Vogelhäus und genug schon seiner Knecht. Wenn Paare hat der Leib zu gehen, das ist ein Nest gewesen. Wenn Gott hat geschworen, dem Jam hat zwei, das ist ein Nest gewesen euch. Von die allen, die zum Lech klein und groß, das Größte von allen für euch ist geschehen zu mir, sei Gott gewünscht, hast von mir gemacht, Amen. Sie so wunder, nicht so nach von der Floß. Gott nimmt der Schneider bei der Hand, führt ihm rein und nicht so nach von der Floß. In der Meisterweltenland hat David Meister Held gemacht. Das ist ein Nest gewesen. Und Chaneke sind männlich acht. Das ist ein Nest gewesen euch. Doch von allen ist Lech klein und groß, das Größte von allen für euch ist der Nest, was dacht sich kann nicht sein. Ich bin deins und du bist mein.
Well, the viewer that got the question right is one who has gotten 2 right or 3 right, and we've only done 6 shows in the last few weeks. So the answer is Fiorello. And D.G. Brandamore, an old friend of mine, answered that correctly. Did you guys know that?
I thought it was the apple tree.
Ah, okay. See? Well, and I did the musical that they wrote after Fiddler that is a beautiful show that doesn't get the credit it deserves, and that was The Rothschilds, as we've discussed this. So yes, DG, you don't get a cruise around the world or anything like that. We can't offer that, but you must be getting the MVP award for the most valuable player of watching Beyond the Green Room every week. So I'd like to. This is a scary question for all of us in the business. Under normal circumstances, because if I don't have at least 14 projects lined up, I dread anyone asking me, what are you doing next? But I have a feeling that I know that all three of you are working on things that are about to pop when it maybe even before we come out of this pandemic. So I'd like to know what's going on. Loni, you were starting to tell me about what you were doing.
Okay. So I was part of this play about 4 years ago called My Mother, My Sister and Me. It was written by award-winning playwright Sherry Heller. And it's about a Jewish family in the Bronx in 1969, the summer of 69. And there's the grandmother and her daughter and two daughters and the soon-to-be ex-husband. But it's a wonderful story of, older people letting go of the younger people, accepting the younger one, it's a feel-good play. And anyway, so this wonderful producer, Jamibeth, you probably know him, Avi Kaufman, or Hoffman, wait. Hoffman. It's Avi in Florida.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like really getting brain dead now. So the play was given to him to read. He fell in love with it, and we are going to be part of. I have the wrong glasses on. It's the Yiddish Fest produced by Avi, September 7th to 13th. The play is going to be online virtual reading live at noon on the 13th, directed by none other than Richard Klein. And, from Three's Company. And we're really excited. The young girl playing my granddaughter is such a pistol. It's wonderful. And it came out of nowhere. It was like we would say beschert. So we will be doing that. And the festival is going to be seen. It's the first time it's a virtual festival that's going to go all over the world. And there are so many different events, but we're like the event. And we've been with this, I've been attached to this for 4 years. And one of our leaders, I don't know if you know Wayne Scherzer, who was Wayne. So of course he's my manager now. He became a manager. This is okay, really quickly. When Georgie went to college, I said, okay, I'm going back. I'm going back into the business. I stayed home. That's what I was supposed to do. Oh, you're not dead? Oh, wow. Couldn't get an agent. Nobody with my history, okay? So I was talking to Wayne, who had crossed over to becoming a manager, which I didn't know. And he said, so what's going on? I said, I can't find an agent. Nobody will take me. And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I've become a manager. And I went, wow. How do you feel about an older client? He said, who? I said, me. And that was like 10, 11 years ago. So he also became involved with the play, and he's been spearheading, not letting anybody give up. And Sherry, the playwright, it's like a dog on a bone. And we are now going to be presented virtually. So it's free. Everybody, all you have to do is, log on to Yiddish Fest, produced by Avi Hoffman in September. It's a wonderful festival. And that's what I'm doing. And
Great.
I'm excited and, pumped and ready to go lift the barbell.
Well, that story has something for everybody, not only what you're doing, but also, it seems like the business changes every 5 years anyway. In the old days, my mother was in the business, and when she danced, you could go into, you would get she was a member of Chorus Equity then, and she would get a card in the mail saying you can go into this audition, and she would go for female dancers, and there would maybe be 30 girls there. and they were looking for 5. So you had a very good chance of getting cast in the show. And if you didn't get that one, there was another one next week being cast. The girl dancers didn't have to sing, they didn't have to understudy. It was all that kind of thing, and that all changed. And it used to be that you could go into say the Rodgers and Hammerstein office or the David Merrick office and audition weekly for their in-house casting people. And now it's the independent casting directors who are in charge of all that. So we always have to remember that the rules change very quickly. The types of musicals, the type of plays that are being done. It feels like it was overnight, but there is a progression to these things. So we're facing a time right now where there's going to be a lot of changes when we come out of this, and maybe some of them will be so wonderful. We have to embrace that. We have to hope that they will be. And working virtually, if you had told me that we could do a show like this 2 months ago and we'd be able to pull it off. Of course, we haven't finished yet, and my husband and technician is in the other room. He could pull the plug on us at any time. But if you had told me that we would have been able to do this, I don't know that I would have been believing of that fact. So this is a wonderful thing. We're learning those skills. We have to audition virtually now. We're doing shows virtually, and not that we all don't want to come back in person, but it's a good skill to learn for sure.
Keeps your blood flowing, keeps the juices flowing.
We got to do it, right? Well, what are you heading towards, Jamibeth?
Yeah, well, what you were saying was very interesting because I had a really great thing happen. So I cast Jane Eyre on Broadway, and the composer of Jane Eyre, Paul Gordon, I've also worked with him on another production of Jane Eyre subsequently, and he's working on this project now called Streaming Musicals. And I was lucky enough for him to call me and have me cast a role that is going to be happening very shortly in one of his new streaming musicals that he's working on. And it was just one of the most amazing things because every step of the process was virtual. And even now with the actors that we cast, they're filming from home. So learned so much about technology, about initial auditions, callbacks with material from the show, everything online from having done that. It was an amazing process. And I was like, oh, I wonder if the collaboration will be the same. But it was in certain ways even better. So that was amazing. And hopefully I'll get to work with him again on some more of those. But yeah, and I'm going to be directing my first Zoom reading next month of a new play. So I'm brushing up on my Zoom skills right now to make sure that I can direct everyone to do what they need to do on Zoom as well as acting. So there's kind of a 2-part process to this, which I'm really looking forward to as well. A brand new play, a comedy. So hopefully that translates well over Zoom. And of course, looking forward to getting back into the casting room whenever that allows, but also looking forward to our next season at the National Yiddish Theater whenever the world allows us to reopen. We had 2 incredible shows coming up, which I got to cast and then obviously got put on hold from the pandemic. One is a Yiddish translation of The 10th Man by Patty Chayefsky. And the other one is Barry Manilow and Bruce Sussman's musical Harmony. So
my husband designed that in La Jolla.
Amazing. Yeah. So those were both in our season, had been on sale. And I had the great good fortune of casting both of those pieces, only to have them both put on hold with the pandemic. So hopefully we will get to revisit those in 2021.
Great.
Is there a start time for Harmony? I have friends who were in it, so I'm just sort of curious. You know, they were. It was supposed to start in January, I think, is what they were looking at, right?
But we'll see. I mean, things change, as David said, every minute. So kind of getting good at rolling with the, I've got it all in front of me, just in case I'm told to press go.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when we were first shut down, there were seemed to be an awful lot of theater's still going with the hope that they were going to reopen in a couple of months, and they were doing equity principle auditions to follow the equity rules and all of that. And it was online. But all of a sudden, it just melted away, and there was nothing for about 2 months. And I would say within the last couple of weeks, starting with that production of Godspell at the Berkshires, equity seems to be working on agreements to do either small shows or they have a media agreement to do things online. So it's nothing near what we had hoped, but it is a step in the right direction. And I have to say, Carl, I owe you a public thank you for that lovely recommendation you sent for me when a certain theater was asking about, because they do indeed want to cast me in this show, but it's been postponed indefinitely. But I got a lovely note from the director, and it was about the most encouraging thing you can get from someone who wants to work with you. And you wrote, I couldn't have asked for a better letter of recommendation. So I thank you for that publicly right now. And
no problem. I think it is interesting that, as Jamibeth can say, casting is 99% of it, and you're closer to people for a limited amount of time than you are to lovers, husbands, wives, anything. And if the people you're with make the experience unpleasant, there's nothing worse than that. It's all about trying to get the right people in the right room. I'm very curious as to see, when that room opens up again. When's the next time you're going to have when's the next open call audition where you're going to have people lined up? When is that actually going to be? Is that ever going to be again? It's an interesting, it's an interesting dilemma. We're planning a season. I mean, we just sent out our stuff. You probably can't see it, but it's all backwards. But we're doing a full season for next year. And my feeling was, when they asked me about it, I said, look, because I have students also, these are equity shows, but we want students to work as assistant stage managers, to work on crew, to understudy, and to present theater. It's about the preparation and presentation of live theater. I mean, I have nothing against the Zoom events, because I think it is about keeping the juices going, but all they sort of remind you of is what you're missing, which is about being in the room. So we're going to do a full season, and right now we're limited to 25 people in the theater. David's worked in our theater a bunch of times. It's 512 seats. So we're with a balcony and downstairs. So we've marked it off. We're going to say, okay, if it's 25 people, we're going to sell tickets to 25. We've been doing a series of outdoor concerts. They're free. Come on the lawn, sit on the lawn, food trucks, just watch. And there's a real hunger. I mean, we did one at the last minute. We had 125 people show up with lawn chairs to sit out and watch people singing songs from previous musicals that we've done in the past. So I think that I'm optimistic about the need for people to have not a virtual experience, but the actual experience, that they want that. And that maybe what this has reminded people of is how important it is to be in the room again, and that of what they miss, they're going to get again. And it's going to come back. I really do believe that. Because there's a whole ecosystem that's kind of been thrown, out the window from casting directors. Everything has just changed. And when is that the new normal? But I do believe that there is going to be hope, and that people are going to start producing again. And whether it's for us, it's going to be a lot of 1- and 2-person shows. And I've already, I've asked, like Beth Level and Adam Heller, I asked them, I said, if you're going to be married, pick some 2-person shows. Let's take a look at them. We'll bring them down. I guarantee we'll do the runs here. Create your own work. I think that's the way to go. I think David, when he was doing Bittersweet, I think that the 1- and 2-person shows, at least for the next year or so, are the way to go, and I think it's going to happen. So I'm optimistic. Yeah, people are going to come back.
I think we all are, and I want to, just as a sidebar before we talk further, I just want to make sure that everybody knows what Centenary Stage Company is. I will tell you, first of all, it is a place where wonderful actors get to do roles you would never dream of doing, and some that you've always wanted to do. I have a list of shows that I've done out there that I loved every one of them, and they couldn't be more different. You get some amazing talent out there, and this is a theater that people don't know enough about, and they should know more about, especially since you're going forward no matter what right now. And the sets that you have out there would rival anything you have seen on Broadway. And it's a great experience. I didn't know about the theater before I came out to audition for you the first time. And as I say, you said it was a great phone call that you made. when you asked me, you said, yeah, I mean, we're still here, come out and audition. That was the greatest trip I ever made into the western regions of New Jersey. But it really is. Keep it.
It's only 50 miles from New York. That's what I always say to people. It's 50 miles west of New York. Hackettstown, New Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
West. It's right by the Delaware Water Gap. So it's like Brigadoon. You come down the hill, and it's 1882 here.
I'll go.
Well,
really?
It's a beautiful space, and the work is really quality work, and it was so unexpected. And now I go back. I always want to go back. I'm always saying to Carl, do you have anything for me this year? So I've been very fortunate to work with you several times. And
I can't wait to go see a show there. I've never been there.
Well, I'll drive you out next time. So, well, I've done that for a few of the folks in the profession that say, you're doing what? Where is that? I mean, Carl and I have done Moliere together, and Agatha Christie, and Moss Hart, and Mark McDonough. We've done.
That's right. Everything from Cripple of Inishment to the Mousetrap.
Neil Simon. Just
Neil
very.
Simon, right.
I have to say that every time I think of our show, there's a whole. If you know Sunshine Boys, there's a whole bit in there about how my character is spitting in his face while we're doing it, and after the theater shut down, I kept checking on Facebook to see if Carl was still alive, because I thought my droplets have been drenching him now for 5 weeks, and so I figured if he was okay, I was okay. And, it's amazing what we think about during this period.
Hey, David, why don't we do I Do for Carl?
That would be great. I think he'll probably let us quarantine together for 14 days before we do it. But I think we would have enough to talk about and enjoy if we had to do that first.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I love it. Let's do it.
I did that show a long time ago, and I would love to do it again. Because I think
I will be at opening night. That sounds awesome.
Okay.
Wonderful. And Carl will direct. So there you have it.
We've got it.
We got it.
Well, that's great. So any more parting shots? Anything you want to tell us? Any more great theater stories? We got about 5 minutes left. I think if we launch into one, it may take us overtime, but that'd be all right. So. I told you to save all of your stories, Loni, and don't tell me.
I want to offer some advice to the young actors out there for just a moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Using this time, you can use it really, really wisely to keep on studying, to keep your contacts up, to keep, learning all the shows out there. There's so many things you can do during this time, and I spend a lot of time thinking about what can you do. You can still take classes online and everything like that, and it brings me back just to I know everyone wants to hear audition room stories because those are the best, but the most recent one that really stands out to me is getting to work with Joel Grey on The Yiddish Fiddler, because I've worked with so many wonderful directors, but Joel was so incredibly giving to young performers. I took a lot away from that experience as a casting director and as a director, because, he was working with young performers who were nervous to audition for him, On top of the fact that they had to learn Yiddish for the audition, for the callback. And he, was so wonderful at always telling actors to, access their most honest selves. His idea for the production, of course, was showed on the stage was, that intimacy, that honesty, and finding those organic moments. And so I'm just urging everyone to use this time to find that.
Well, that's great advice, and I'm trying to, even though I'm not a young actor, I am trying to work on things right now too. I realized that when I wasn't auditioning for musicals, I wasn't singing every day, so I'm trying to vocalize more often, learn some new material. Learning this kind of thing, how we technically must master these things for online auditions and film auditions, and because even after the pandemic, I think this medium is going to be very important to how we get cast and how we work, and of course this show has been a great way of bringing people together. Yeah. Meeting new friends, seeing old friends, and just letting us all know that we're not alone in this, because that's the scariest thing. When we're people in live theater are so used to going into a rehearsal room and hugging everyone, and you feel like a family, and we miss that so terribly much. And it's almost more that we miss that than we miss our paycheck. Well, I don't know about that, but and speaking of which, I say this almost every week, and I really do want our listeners. I know nobody has much money right now, but if you want to help live performers, people who are struggling during this period, please think of donating to the Actors Fund, because they're helping people stay insured and keep a roof over their heads. We all shine it on, but sometimes it's not so easy. I know a lot of young people in the business have left New York City, possibly for good, because they don't see their future very clearly right now. And all of us are survivors in this business, so we've always found a way forward, and we will. I promise you, all listeners, that we will find a way forward. So having said that, I would like to announce my guests for next week. We're going to do a little bit of a theme show. And next week, we're going to have Bill Selby, who has been involved with Forbidden Broadway almost since its inception, and two very high-profile performers also who are involved with Forbidden Broadway, Christina Bianco and Jared Bradshaw. So we're not going to just talk about Forbidden Broadway, but we're going to bring some very high-profile Forbidden Broadway alums together, and I expect to learn an awful lot about what they've done through the years with that. So once again, thank you so much, Carl Wallnau, Jamibeth Margolis, and Loni Ackerman, for joining me for brunch on Sunday. And to play us off, we have a wonderful rendition of a Maltby and Shire song by Loni. Loni was, of course, in the original cast of Starting Here, Starting Now, but this is from a more recent show called Big, and it's a favorite of mine, and it's a beautiful rendition for a mom. With
my husband designed that show too.
See that? We could do 90 minutes on the shows.
We should just list the shows he hasn't designed. That would be probably quicker, right?
Exactly.
And he's self-taught. Came up through the ranks. Sorry, to sweeping floors.
No, that's great. I could do 90 minutes with each one of you, and I would love to sometime. And hopefully, we're going to do it in person before long. So thank you all, and let's listen to Loni's wonderful rendition of Stop Time to play us out.